Hi there, Margarita here. Welcome to the Rise Up with Margarita show, where every week, Mondays on 2 p.m. at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, I really show up with the Rise Up show to really assist those light workers who are ready to graduate to New Earth Leader and really show up and make a difference in the world, and who are ready to really take that stand for the light and really apply themselves, be the spiritual conscious entrepreneur that they are meant to be, so that they can really show up in the world and serve. So if we haven't met yet, my name's Margarita Alcantara, and I help New Earth leaders activate their power and light in the world through their epic businesses, and I build that through power activation work and mentorship. So today's topic, because every week we have a different topic, today's topic is the top 5 myths that keep light workers from their power. And this is super important, and I really wanted to speak into this. If you have been checking out my Instagram lives, especially, also they're on Facebook, but I mean, actually, the stories. This weekend, I posted a question, and I got a lot of interesting answers. And if you're here, saying hello to everyone here, good to see you. Excuse me. Just finishing up my smoothie over here. But yes, hello, Kate. Hello, Amelie. Hello, everyone who is stepping in, saying hello to you today. So today's topic is the top 5 myths that keep light workers from their power. So the reason why this is really important for all light workers like you is to really understand what you've been tolerating in your life, what you have been settling for, because the reality is that you have been settling, right? You've been settling to accept less than who you are. You have been settling to acquiesce to your fear, in the name of, just really wanting to not ruffle any feathers, or, really not step up your game in the world, which you are meant to do, right? But all of that takes a lot of being in your power, making aligned choices, and doing things that are scary and absolutely out of your comfort zone in big ways. Baby steps are helpful. All of it is helpful. But if you really want to advance and move the needle in how you're serving the world, really make an impact in the world, and really show up with your epic businesses, you're going to need to do things that you've never done before, that is absolutely petrifying to do. And so, there are certain things, though, that help light workers stay in a place of stuckness and be blocked in their power. And so I posed a question over the weekend on stories of what is holding you back from your light worker power. And I preface that by saying, if anywhere you are blaming others for not being in your power, like, I see a lot of light workers say, I'm not in my power as a light worker because of my family, or because of my partner, or because of so-and-so. And even, putting under that umbrella too, it's that aspect of, um, people who may judge me, that kind of thing, right? Like in all of those cases, you're giving your power away to all of these other people, right? And the reality is that if you are giving your power away and you're not taking ownership of your own power, and you're outsourcing it by saying, other people have power over me, because that's what you're doing when you're saying that it's because of my family, it's because of my partner, it's because of my friends, or, people that I know, right? Anywhere where you're saying that, you're actually in a place of victimhood. And there are tons of light workers in their victimhood, but the ones that I am trying to reach and really looking to connect at that heart level with are those light workers who are scared and committing to doing it anyway, right? So with that in mind, I am opening up this training today around the top 5 myths that keep light workers from their power, because you deserve to be in your power. And this is really about being connected to yourself, right? Like, I mean, if you are outsourcing your power and your light, and you're worried about what other people are saying, going to say about whatever you share, And also you're more concerned about what other people are thinking about you, whether it be they're judging you and saying that you're crazy or nuts or whatever for being in your light worker power, and vice versa. If you're depending on validation, like people saying, oh, you look wonderful or you're awesome and all this other stuff where they're patting you on the back, if you're looking for that, then you may not be a light worker, right? Because if that's what your concern is, if that's what you're leading with, then you're more connected to what do I get out of it? How do I get to be served? How, what about me? And, and of course you get to have an amazing experience with your life, right? As a light worker, it gets to be aligned. And when you are stepping up in alignment, it is amazing. You love your life. You wake up with desire and connection to yourself and even excitement on most days, right? Like I definitely do. But when you're not connected to your power and your purpose, then it is going to be exhausting as fuck, right? So I'm going to share with you the top 5 myths, first of all, that keep light workers from their power. Then I'm going to share with you why light workers can get sucked into believing these myths, and then what you can do to transform them. So I will be giving you some steps that you can take, step into if you desire to switch this up, and really embrace that, right? So seeing you folks here. So glad that my work is inspiring, and absolutely, Zachary, alignment is such a key word. Absolutely. So here are the top 5 myths that keep lightworkers from their power. And before I actually go into number 1, I wanted to share the results of what I got from that IG story when I was surveying people, asking them what is keeping you from your power. So I'm just going to share a few that are a little bit more representative. One person said shame. Another one said, I literally copied and pasted a lot of this so I could share this with you today. Another one said, every answer I can think of leads me back to not standing in my power or living in victim mode. Another one said, trusting myself, I go in and out. Battle I've been fighting for some time. It's getting better though. Probably the shame and guilt, someone says, and the false programs that tell me I'm not good enough, but I am. Another person said, not knowing what action to take first. Another one said, well, I saw a lot of people talking about physical health, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute, how that gets to not limit you, right? But also it's this aspect of doubting. I saw a lot of people, the whole pattern of what I was seeing from that survey, from that question, was lightworkers were telling me, lightworkers like you were telling me, what was holding you back from your power was not trusting yourself, fear of your own power. I saw that pop up at least twice, that same exact phrase. Health issues, being too busy with 3D life. One person said, I've got 3D responsibilities. I'm a mom, I'm a wife, I have children to feed, and I have a house to clean, right? So there are all these reasons why light workers don't step into their power. But also people mentioned shame, not knowing what to do first, fatigue, things like that. So I'm going to speak into this because actually I had written up some of these points that I'm going to share with you now about the top 5 myths that keep light workers from their power. And it actually reflected a lot of what you shared with me over the weekend. So the top 1 myth, one of the top 5 myths that keep light workers from their power is that being in their power is a luxury that they'll get to when things settle. So that is myth number 1 for a reason, because if I had $1 for every light worker who said, oh yeah, I'll get to that when I have time. I'll get to that when I feel more empowered. I'll get to that when I don't have children to raise. I'll get to that when I lose 5 pounds. I'll get to that when I feel more comfortable. I'll get to that when I settle, right? When things settle down, when things are more comfortable, right? And as a reminder, for those of you who've been following me on my IG lives for a while and my Facebook lives for a while, I only answer questions at the end of the broadcast. So that's putting that out there. Okay. And so the reason why that is number 1 is because so many light workers say that they'll get to it eventually. Like, oh yeah, I'll do that when I'm not like in survival mode, right? It's like, why do you think you're in survival mode? Because you haven't taken ownership of your power. And then others say, oh well, I need to make money first in my life. I need to have more time in my life first, and then I'll be able to get to being in my power as a light worker, right? Why do you think you are not having connection with your time and money, right? Because this everything is energetic. Anything and everything is energy. And if you're a light worker and you actually do work with light and energy frequency, and you actually move it around and heal with it and all that juicy stuff that we light workers do, then you know that everything is energy. And if your energy is in a place of, I can't do this because, right? Like, the reason why that is a myth in itself is because if you're really connected with your energy, then you know that nothing can stop you. You know that nothing can limit you. And to say, oh, I cannot do that, is already you identifying with you being in a place of even victimhood around it, a place of being incapable. And you're actually identifying with that. And that's a dangerous place to be, because whenever you are identifying with I'm unable to, I cannot, right? Then you're literally saying I'm a limited being and therefore I can't do XYZ, right? And then when you talk about things like time and money and capability and being perfect enough and all that stuff, then you already squashed your dreams before they even began, right? Because you're not even allowing yourself to embrace your dreams and open up into them. And so if you believe that being in your power is a luxury that you'll get to later, here's a news flash. That time where you feel more settled, where you feel more comfortable, where you will have more time and, well, more money, yes, you can have that. But all these other things of, I'm going to wait until I'm more capable. I'm going to wait until things feel right, right? They don't feel right because you're not embracing your power. They don't feel right because until you embrace your power fully and completely, and if you work more deeply with me, you'll actually be activated into it, which will like accelerate you real quick into your power codes, right? All of us have it, none of us are exempt, but I would say that 99% of us, of humanity, it's been dormant. That's the other aspect of our DNA, which scientists have termed junk DNA, but they're not junk DNA. They are connected to our spiritual power and us being divine individuals, because we are, you are, And so the thing is part of that news flash is that time will never come. That time where you feel more settled will never come. And one thing that, you've heard me talk about for like at least 1 to 2 years, maybe even 3, is that things are going to get more intense. We think that since 2020, it's been like, wow, that was really crazy, right? It's like, that was just the tip of the iceberg, people. Like, I'm just letting you know right now, the reason why I am so, on this with light workers everywhere to really be in their power is, some people are like, oh yeah, well, she's got a program for power activation, so of course she's going to be talking about her power, right? Yeah, yes and no. Yes, because that is my work. And yes, that is something that I can do for you, right? And serve with you towards your purpose and your power as a light worker. And the reality is that if you don't step in now, when the shit really hits the fan, you're going to be like, oh my God, what's going on? Like, I'm like now, like before I was in survival mode and now it's like off the hook, and, people are going to be losing their minds. Not everyone, the people who've been preparing, like myself and others, we've already done the work, right? Like, not that it ever ends, because the work continues. The work is always there. And if you ever connect with someone who says, oh yeah, like I'm done growing, I know everything, right? Like, stay clear from that person, because that person does not know what they're doing, right? If a person ever says that, they really honestly, would be someone that I personally would not want to learn from someone like that, right? Because the reality is that when you're in true mastery, you realize that it is all growth, it is all expansion, it is all what's next, and being excited about that, versus, oh, I'm just going to, study these books or whatever, and now I know everything, right? Because the reality is that the way the planet is shifting now and all the cosmic rays that are coming into the planet, it is assisting us in expansion in a really, really big way. So this is really, really important. And so, yeah, I'm noticing someone's observation here in the comments. She's saying, I said nothing gets in my way as a light worker, which is true because all of the mental story is false. But what is so funny is what came up as an honest afterthought was arrogance. Well, that's really interesting, right? Because that tells you something, that's the underlying thing, right? Because, excuse me, if you really do the work to go deep, deep, deep into what's holding you back, it's not just only, oh yeah, I'm afraid my mom or my aunt or my ex or my childhood friend is going to see me online and make fun of me, right? It goes a lot deeper than that. And so this whole thing about arrogance, that is also a lie, right? So there's some work you get to do there. But it's a very powerful thing to realize what's been running things, right? Like that in itself is a very powerful catalyst. It doesn't mean that you're in your power yet, but you are opening into it and you're understanding, wow, so I created this understanding that, like if I step up, then XYZ happens. And then going deeper, it's like, oh, I might actually be seen as arrogant if I were to be in my power, right? So that's like a huge, huge myth, which brings me to number 2. What a perfect segue. I did not plan that. Okay, so number 2, that out of the top 5 myths that keep light workers from their power, number 1 being that being in your power is a luxury that they'll get to when things settle, which is one of the biggest lies I've ever heard. And then number 2 is, in terms of the top 5 myths, is that your authentic lightworker truth sounds crazy and that it's dangerous for you to be in your power. So that kind of like was tying for number 1, but like this felt like, because it's up there, right? A lot of lightworkers tend to not take ownership of their power because of just what, so many of you told me over the weekend of like, I'm afraid of my power. I'm afraid, and like I hear this all the time when I'm, on calls with some of these really powerful lightworker souls, right? Is I'm afraid of my power because I've misused it before. I've talked about this like since the cows come home. Like honestly, this exact topic. If you've been following me long enough, right? Is this belief of it's dangerous for me to be in my power. Like literally it is a life-threatening thing. And I know, in your head, you're like, but I don't believe that, right? Logically, I know that for a fact that's not true. Yet, in the visceral aspect of your being, you are all, I'm going to die. Really, like it comes to this experience on a physical, visceral level of if I step into my power, I will die, right? And that is a very interesting thing to notice if that comes up for you. This is something I've talked about before, but if it's related to past life trauma, where you were, so many powerful light workers who are powerful now, have either misused their power, guaranteed. That's why you're here again to like rectify that, right? Or, you were persecuted. For me, that I experienced both of that, like probably repetitively even. But the reality is that, you get to make a shift around what you want to experience in life. It's so, so important. Yeah, someone is sharing here a tragic death. Yeah, oftentimes that was the case, right? And you can either wallow in that past life memory or you can do something about it by addressing it, healing it, and clearing it, and making a statement about what it is you're going to step in now in this lifetime with your power by taking ownership of it, right? And this was even something I was working on quite literally last week with some of my private clients. And I think, yeah, we actually did a group call on just this topic. I did a whole training on how to transform your self-doubt and transcend into power. And it included an activation, which is always awesome. But, you know, it's this thing where, you know, that all of this stuff about, you know, doubting yourself and all of this that comes up that makes you doubt your power. Someone actually, you know, picked up on it who had responded to that question I posed. And they said, well, you know, like, I understand it's a programming, and, you know, because that's something I talk about a lot too, right? I mean, what a perfect plan to divide light workers and also humanity. This is how they're dividing up humanity, right? By really making us fear our own power, making us fear our own abundance, right? To be even repulsed by our own abundance, to be even repulsed by your own power, right? Like, literally, it's a visceral disgust in some light workers to be in their power, right? And, you know, back in the day, I think it was like probably in my 20s or whatever, like, that was definitely a thing for me, right? But, you know, it's been so many years that that's not even my reality. And so I don't even function from that reality. But the reality for many light workers is this feeling of, it's dangerous. It's literally dangerous for me to be in my power. And therefore, what do you think you're going to do, right? You're going to create experiences where you're not in your power, where you're not going to take ownership of your power. And you might even outsource your power and like give it to someone else and be like, here, take care of me, right? So that is a huge fallacy, a huge myth that light workers are believing, that first of all, their authentic truth sounds crazy, because honestly, it sounds crazy to you. And the only people who ever would say it's crazy to you are people who are threatened by you actually showing up and doing your thing. And then they're projecting onto you. I mean, that's really what that is. And the whole thing about being, you know, it's dangerous to be in your power. If you are in your power, you get to call the shots. You get to say, this is what my experience is going to be in this lifetime, right? It's your call. No one else's call but yours. You get to say, this is how I intend to live my life on a conscious level, because this is what I want. This is what's aligned. This is what I am embracing, right? And nothing less. And that's one of, you know, the traits of a successful light worker, a light worker who's getting it done, who is experiencing the impact and not in the hustle of it, right? Because I'm not in the hustle of it. Like, I show up, yeah, but it's not to the point where it's like I'm experiencing adrenal fatigue or something, right? Like, been there, done that, wouldn't recommend. So that was number 2. So the top 5 myths that keep light workers from their power. Number 1 was that being in your power is a luxury that you'll get to when things settle. Number 2 is that your authentic light worker truth sounds crazy and that it's dangerous to be in your power. And then number 3 that I'm going to share with you is this myth that money is evil or unspiritual. This is a huge, like, topic that light workers love to hate on me for. And, you know, I get so many hate comments about me being some greedy person. It's like, dude, you don't need to be greedy to like embrace your abundance, right? Like, I mean, that's like the mindset. That's the old paradigm mindset of like, you know, greed, manipulation, and pain and suffering. And if you receive money, you're actually siphoning it from other people, right? It's like, that is the biggest load of crap that I have heard. One of the biggest loads of crap that I have heard. And it's just simply untrue, right? But I will tell you that so many light workers believe this. And thus, if something you believe is evil, you're not going to run towards it. You're going to be repulsed by it and you're going to run away from it, right? So I hope that you are starting to get some ahas out of what I'm sharing with you so far, because so many light workers do this and they allow themselves to be in survival mode. They tolerate being in survival mode. They tolerate being broke and all this stuff because, they believe that money is evil or unspiritual. When in reality, money is neutral. It just really is. Money's neutral. And if you resist your power, because being in your abundance is part of being in your power, if you resist on any level your power, you are going to repel that which you keep saying that you want. So if you keep saying that you want abundance, if you keep saying you want to be in your power, but on some level you believe that they're evil, then you're not going to bring that to you, right? You're going to actually block it. So keep that in mind. So let me know if so far this is landing for you. Okay. Yes. And I'm seeing here money is a tool. That's because that's something that I've shared a lot on too, right? Just to give you an example, um, one time, like pre-COVID, I actually rented this gigantic house upstate on this beautiful land, had a gigantic meadow, excuse me, or backyard, front yard, whatever. And it was gorgeous. And I held a retreat there just because I was like, you know what? This is what I'm going to do with this money. I'm going to actually upgrade my client's experience around, this specific retreat that was discussed. And so it was really, really amazing. And it included an amazing meal that was made by, it was like a local chef. Who specialized in like farm to table or something. And we had a sumptuous, delicious dinner, right? And I hired that person and I said, please come to our house and cook us up a meal and whatever, right? So, and then there that was. And then another addition, which was actually more optional, was that I provided them access to doing a goddess photo shoot if they wanted to do it. Right. And I definitely took myself up on that offer. Right. So I brought in my friend who's actually a fashion photographer. And, we all did our goddess portraits. It was really, really amazing. And I did that because, I was able to put in that abundance and use the money as a tool rather than just, the old paradigm, aspect of manipulation, greed. If I receive money, I'm actually taking from others. It's like, no, you're not. There's all of that perspective is based on scarcity. And if you function from scarcity, you're actually going to create more scarcity. Even if you say, I want to be abundant, I want to be in my power, yet you're like not resonating with the frequency of abundance and of power, yet you want it, you're going to keep blocking it because on the deepest recesses of your soul, you don't even believe yourself. So that's why, it's an issue. So that was number 3. Money is evil or unspiritual as one of the top 5 myths that keep lightworkers from their power. Number 4, which is a big one for a lot of lightworkers who are showing up as spiritually conscious entrepreneurs. Number 4 is that it's unspiritual to charge money for your services. Again, if I had like $1 for every single time a lightworker said, oh, well, I'm going to just barter. I'm just going to barter for all of my services, right? It's like you can do that, but, try paying your bills that way. Try paying your bills that way right now, with your barter, with your credit card company, with your, electricity company, with, whatever, right? So good luck with that because that's not sustainable. Being in business as a spiritually conscious entrepreneur for 13 years, at least, I think it's might be getting to be more than that. I'll tell you that when I was first starting out, I did do some bartering, but then you get to a point where you actually charge for your services, right? Because the bartering is not meant to be something that you just continuously do for the rest of your life. Because if that's all you're doing, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And I hate to break it to you, but that's the truth. And if you're not actually charging for your services, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. And until you actually provide that service and then receive money for it, you will just only have a hobby. Once that transaction starts to happen, and that transaction of, providing the services, providing the level of transformation, and then receiving back that abundance for that, right? Then you're a business owner, right? So that's just one of the biggest things that a lot of light workers who are spiritually conscious entrepreneurs are not really getting, is that you're not in business if you're not selling anything. You just aren't. That's like probably the most basic definition of being in business, right? So, and that goes to tie in with this whole scarcity mindset and scarcity perspective of like, if I charge others for my services, then it takes from them, or there could be also an issue of you not valuing the level of transformation you provide, right? Because that can look like not charging for your services because you're like, oh, well, I'm just starting out, or, oh, well, I've only been doing this for 2 years, or, insert excuse in the blank, right? There are so many reasons why light workers may say, oh, I'm just not going to charge money for my services, or grossly undercharge. That's something that I see a lot of light workers do, is grossly undercharge their services. And then they wonder, why am I attracting all these people who are in scarcity? Right? Because whatever you're putting out, you're attracting. And if you are in this place of scarcity around money, around not being abundant, being afraid of your own abundance, having a belief about your own abundance, or a belief about your power, then you're going to radiate that out into the world. Vice versa, if you are connected and activated in your power and your abundance, then you're going to radiate that out into the world, and you're going to attract those who are ready, who for the transformation, not just shopping around for what's cheapest. Because if you are in scarcity, those are the types of clients you will attract. Guaranteed. I know that for a fact because I was there. I was there many years ago at the very beginning when I didn't have a coach, I didn't have anyone, I just learned on my own, right? And I think I could have probably accelerated much faster into my abundance and my power had I invested in that support of myself early on. But that said, I'm making up for that now. And I recommend that you do too. And even if it's not, mentorship with me or working more deeply with me, get yourself a mentor, right? Like, you can make as many excuses as you want about why you are an amazing lone wolf, because I have said every single one of those excuses. Because I was like Queen Lone Wolf. I'm like, no one can touch me. I'm independent. I got it all together. I'll figure it all out because I'm amazing. And somehow it'll just all plop in my lap, right? And I don't know what kind of delusion I was believing, but that was a delusion, right? And so obviously not believing any of that anymore. It's not even in my energy field, but I'm sharing this with you because you get to charge for the level of transformation that you provide, right? Like, you get to. You get to be abundant. You get to be powerful. You get to be in the fullness of it. You get to enjoy what that life brings you, that connection with yourself, that, impact you're making, which obviously feels amazing, right? When you do that. So that was number 4. And then the 5th top myth that keeps light workers from their power is believing that they need to choose between being in integrity or being in their abundance with their power, with money, with other things, right, in your life. And so, really keep that in mind, is that is a huge fallacy, that you need to choose. That is the biggest load of shit I've ever heard. Well, not that I've ever heard. There's a lot, like, all of these are just so ludicrous to me, right? That it's just because it's not even part of my energy field anymore, right? So it's like, it's not congruent. And that's the thing, is that if you want to be in your power and be in your abundance, right? This is about being that vibrational match. It's not because, oh, now you proved yourself worthy because you worked yourself into the ground. No, it just proves that you can work yourself into the ground. You didn't get any brownie points from, the powers that be on any level, right? You just got super tired and now you've got adrenal fatigue, right? And I wouldn't recommend that. So that said, The truth is that you don't need to choose. When you are in your light worker power, you realize that you don't need to choose. And so that's really, really important. You realize you don't need to choose, because when you still feel you need to choose, that's all coming from scarcity. It means I can only have one. There can only be one, right? Only one of like this amazing buffet of life, right? I can only have one thing. So totally untrue. So here's why light workers can get sucked into believing these myths. Number one, they still have the need to belong. So that is like a huge thing that you get to clear, right? Because if you are still needing to belong, which is a big reason why we're in this big mess that we're in, right? Not on you personally, right? But in terms of the collective. The collective, there are a lot of people who are not really connected to their consciousness yet, who are not doing that healing work, right? And so they're walking around with a very unconscious experience. And when you are really unconscious, and you just do whatever has been fed to you in terms of the programming of this matrix, much of which is connected to like having you feel not connected to yourself, because really being connected to yourself in the fullness of who you are, especially at the heart level and leading at that level, is super powerful. When people are still not conscious on their path, there is still a need to belong. Meaning like, oh, everyone's doing it. Everyone's telling me to do it. And so I'm just going to automatically do it without even questioning, is this even valid? Is this even true? Is this even like something that needs to be addressed? And if so, does it need to be addressed in this way? Right? And so that's why you're seeing so many problems on the planet, right? Because so many people are just doing what they're told. They're just basically complying with everything that they're being told to do for the greater good, right? And if you're still needing to belong and to still be in that narrative of like, I need that, right? Then it's super easy to get sucked away from your power. It's really easy to be taken out of your power because you're not going to be in your own conviction if you're functioning from that reality, right? So when you still have that need to belong, it can prevent you from speaking your truth about your work, your abilities, and hold you back from being in service. And I see this happen a lot more in terms of when light workers are showing up, like maybe they'll put out something that might be entertaining, but there might not be any either deep value in it, or they're not really saying what they really want to say, right? And the reason that's a problem is because if you are holding back on what you're sharing in that way, other people can feel that. So sometimes, I get light workers saying, oh, well, I'm speaking my truth. I'm putting up videos, right? But it's not just about slapping up a video and saying, now I'm expecting all these people to come to me, right? It's like you actually get to be intentional and conscious and aligned with the message you're putting out. And that's something, again, that I help my private clients with, right? So if that's something that you're interested in, then, that's something you should open into if you're interested in making your impact. But what I'm really saying here is that when you still feel like you need to be accepted or validated by outside sources, you will not speak your truth. If you are still trying to appease your mom, still trying to appease your ex, or still trying to put up a front that you're not in the spiritual community, or you're not comfortable with coming out of the closet with your abilities and things like that, then you're not speaking your truth. And whenever you put up something and you say, oh yay, hey, I'm here to help people, but then you're not really being in your own truth, that is a vibration, and people can pick up on that. And they'll pick up if you're not in your vibration too. Like, I mean, they may not be in like this total awareness of like, wow, Margarita's not really, connected with herself. She's really out of touch or something, right? Like, they're going to pick up that something is off. And as long as they think that something is off, then they're not going to trust you. And if they don't trust you, they're definitely not going to invest in anything you've got to offer. So, and this is not about manipulation either, right? Because that's part of that scarcity paradigm, this old paradigm based on fear and manipulation. And that's not what I'm talking about here. It's about really being authentically connected to your truth to the point that you are not censoring your own self when you are speaking your truth. And again, and also, as I've said in a past life, right? And probably in a past life, is that share from the healed wound, not from the healed scar, right? Share from the healed scar, not from the raging wound. And because a lot of light workers, they don't do that. They just emotionally regurgitate or emotionally vomit all over their audience and say, I'm speaking my truth now, right? It's like, was that a conscious share? Was that a share that was aligned with your intention of what you want to create? Because if it is, go at it, right? But if it's not, think about that, right? And so that was number one, still having the need to belong. Number two, of why lightworkers can get sucked into believing these myths is self-doubt and not trusting your path. And so many lightworkers really doubt themselves. And there's nothing wrong with doubt. That comes up once in a while. It even comes up for me once in a while too. But by now I already have my tools that I've already accessed and that I teach my own clients of how to access within themselves so that they don't get, taken out for like an entire week over it, right? Or even an entire day. So anyways, the self-doubt and not trusting your path. If that's still something that you're experiencing, you will hold back from your power. Because if you don't feel confident, you're not going to be in your power. But the interesting thing about it is, in order to be confident, you need to actually take the action in order to build that confidence, right? So if you just kind of like wait on your living room sofa and say, oh, I'll just like stay here and do light worker or light work, energy work over here, right? And not talk to anybody. And then eventually it's just going to plop in. My confidence will just exude from my being, right? It's like, no, it doesn't work that way. Confidence comes from doing the scary things and realizing that you figured it out and made it happen. That's how confidence builds. But if you're not willing to do anything scary, then you're not going to build the confidence because you're going to just keep rehashing, recycling all of that. Oh, I can't do it, right? But when you actually break out of it and you try it anyway, and then you succeed, then you're like, holy shit, I rock, right? I'm confident now, right? In this area. That's how it works. And then of course, when you keep doing it over and over, right? Then you get super confident. So that's really amazing. So that's number two, the self-doubt and not trusting your path. Number three, why light workers can get sucked into believing these outdated myths is issues around receiving. From receiving love, problems with receiving love. And, the reality is that the way you do one thing is the way you do everything, right? And the reality is that when you are having issues around receiving in one aspect of your life, guaranteed you are probably having issues around receiving in general. So that includes love. So if you're holding back from your love, or if you're not allowing yourself to receive love, or you're closing yourself off from love, or you say, oh, it's not for me, or I feel betrayed, and therefore I'm just going to be like, F everyone, right? Like, and you're not receiving, then you're not only not receiving love, but you're also probably not receiving money because money's an energy, just like love is an energy. It's a frequency. And if you're in this abundance of receiving, then you will receive all of that juiciness. But if you're not, then you'll be blocked, right? So that's number three. Number four, the old paradigm beliefs, which can suck light workers into believing those outdated myths, right? And these old paradigm beliefs are usually coming from what you were taught is real, right? Not that it's the truth, but it's just what you've been taught. And it's something that definitely I experienced growing up, learning, adopting some old paradigm beliefs from, my own parents, right? And, something I've shared with you many times is around this experience of money and how it's hard to come by or it'll give you more problems, right? But if you just keep unconsciously propagating all these outdated stories into adulthood, then, this is a really important thing to explore. Okay, and number 5, the 5th reason why lightworkers can get sucked into believing these myths is not cultivating the proper perspective. So this is not good vibes only. This is not positive thinking. This is about cultivating your frequency to the point that you are emitting a high level frequency where you are truly unlimited. You're not sourcing that scarcity mindset. You're not sourcing this whole like, oh, I can't do that. I don't have money, right? I don't have time. I need to wait till things settle, right? All of those are projections of unhealed, outdated, old paradigm beliefs. And so really committing to cultivating a proper perspective where then you're accessing from that higher frequency, right? And that means doing the work, doing all the inner work so you're not functioning on any level anymore from a place of trauma. And, like, because I've heard this too, someone actually DM me this thing of, well, everyone's a victim and everyone has trauma, right? Yeah, sure. Everyone has experienced trauma, but if you're still in it, that's on you, right? If you're still functioning from like, well, I'm this traumatized person and therefore I'm just going to see my world this way, right? It's your responsibility to actually transmute that, especially if you're a light worker. And this whole thing of, not being able to do things, where you don't feel like things are possible for you, where you create a life that is fearful and limited, guess what? That's the kind of reality you create, right? So really keep that into perspective that when you don't cultivate that proper perspective, one that is sourced from a higher frequency, you will not attract all those things you say you want, like being in your power, like making an impact, like being abundant with your money and your wealth and your joy and your love, right? That will not happen if you are not at that frequency. So empowered light workers know this, right? Who cultivate their frequency on a regular basis and they clear out the programmings, right? And no, not everyone is a victim. People who are victims, who say that they're a victim, they are in that victim mode, right? I mean, there's a way to experience your life to not, because we've all experienced hardships, right? And there can be this momentary experience of like, ah, oh, man, that really messed things up, right? I know I've had those moments. But the difference between being in victimhood and not being in victimhood is the light worker who's in victimhood will blame everyone else, will be like, oh, this person did this to me and that's why I'm not able to access this, right? And the empowered light worker might experience that for like a brief moment, but then they shift it quickly, truly and genuinely, so that in their being, in their heart, they're like, wow, that's not even something I'm going to operate from anymore. And I transmute that into a deeper understanding that I actually take ownership of all of my path and all of my power, right? Because an empowered light worker really functions from that place of like, I am a creator being, and if there's something in my field that I'm not okay with and that's no longer in alignment, I also have the power to shift that. And instead of like, oh, because my ex-boyfriend did this, or oh, because my family is saying this, right? Like, no, it's on you. At one point in the beginning, you experience the disappointment and the hardship, then you transmute it, right? And then you show up and take ownership of yourself, right? So here is what you can do to transform these experiences that are allowing you to believe these outdated, dangerous myths, I'll even say. So number 1, which I've shared before, is address and heal your need to belong. Address and heal that. Like, get into a conscious awareness that you may possibly be still needing that validation that you belong, still needing that validation and that support around like, oh no, I did the good thing, right? Like I did the good thing so that I could belong, right? So address and heal your need to belong. Number 2, believe in yourself no matter what. So empowered light workers, they do not say, oh well, I can't do this because someone else said I couldn't, right? Like no, the empowered light worker, they may have heard that, but they're like, the empowered light worker, they say instead, because I create my own reality, I'm going to take ownership of my life. And if this is my dream, I'm going to take ownership of that dream. And that looks like I'm just going to step into it and start taking some action. And, if you want to be like at a higher frequency around it too, you start off by being in that alignment and getting the support from someone who's been there and done that, you know? So that's important too. So that was number 2, believe in yourself no matter what. Number 3, commit to receiving love in all forms. So that's super important, is commit to receiving love in all forms, because when you do, you're also going to allow yourself to receive money. You're also going to allow yourself to receive joy, happiness, right? All of the things that you want to experience that is part of abundance, right? Because light workers love to say, oh yeah, I'm in my abundance, but then they're not making money. And they're like, oh, there's more to abundance than just money. Of course there is. But getting repulsed by the topic of money and not including it in your abundance is a red flag, right? So that was number 3, commit to receiving love in all forms. Number 4, identify your outdated belief system and choose a different perspective. This is how you shift your beliefs, right? Like if you have an outdated belief that's sourcing scarcity of like, I don't have enough time, I don't have enough money, I'm not capable enough, if I charge for my services, I'm taking from my client, right? All of those things connected to scarcity, then you get to recognize what that's costing you. You get to also recognize whether or not you're willing to tolerate that anymore. And then if you want to keep tolerating that less than happy experience, then, go right ahead. But if you decide instead, no, I want what I want, and I'm no longer going to settle and tolerate for anything less than what I'm here to experience, then you get to shift to a different perspective. So I hope that was helpful. If you're just stepping in now, we have been covering the top 5 myths that keep lightworkers from their power. I then went into why lightworkers can get sucked into believing these myths, and then 4 action steps which you can do to transform them. Here's the 5th step. The 5th thing you can do to transform your getting sucked into these outdated beliefs and changing it so that you can be empowered as a light worker is that once you are awakened into your knowing and you have chosen to commit to your light worker purpose so that you can help people with your services and products, now you're ready to go to the next level by getting activated in your power and receiving support, right? And I share this because that's very, very important. Like across the board, if you're a light worker, it's up to you to take responsibility for your path. No knight on a white horse is riding in to come save you, okay? You get to be your own savior, because the reality is that when we experience that, that's not only how you build your confidence, but then it helps confirm over and over and over again that you are not only are on the right path, but that you have what it takes. But that experience and that feeling and that confidence does not come by just putting it out into the universe and wishing for it, right? That's called wishful thinking. That's not manifestation. So I hope that helped you. And I'm going to take some questions now. And Corey's saying, yes, helpful, thank you, you're welcome. Okay. So in regards to this topic of the top 5 myths that keep lightworkers from their power, do you have any questions? Any other questions about, like ask me to do a psychic reading for you on this live? Like that ain't happening, okay? Like we get to honor your time and keep it aligned to the connection of this topic. So let me know if this is helpful, and what your question related to this topic is. Thank you for your direct communication. You're so welcome. And listening to you makes me be motivated. I'm so glad to hear it. So let me know if you have any questions on that. On this topic of the top 5 myths that keep lightworkers from their power, and whatever I covered, excuse me, I was about to say copied, right? But about what I've covered today. Let me know. Had a little bit of my smoothie. So no questions about this topic? Okay, so glad it's helpful. So sometimes it takes a moment for people to... Okay, I think there's a question here. Okay, this is a good question. I'm seeing a question here from someone who says, I know I'm meant to help in a big way. I am doing work towards this, but I'm also putting energy into another business that I feel is most secure financially. I would rather pour myself into my number one passion, but I'm afraid that pursuit won't support me financially fast enough. Yeah, so this is a great question because on one hand, it's, you know, it's good practice if you already have something that's giving you some income. You know, you can keep it as a side gig and start opening into your deeper work, right? But the truth, there's also truth in this that I'm about to tell you. Every time you split your energy up and you are half focusing on what you're aligned with and half focusing on something that you don't even like, guaranteed you're going to get exhausted really, really fast. And the reason is because whenever you are putting your energy towards something that doesn't feed your soul, that doesn't give you deep joy, that is not in alignment, it will be sucking energy out of you. And so if you're paying attention to that, you're actually paying attention to something that you don't want, right? So just think about the energy that you're focusing on, because I hear this from a lot of light workers, and including like some of my clients who actually was sharing. A lot of them had like some 9-to-5 day jobs. Excuse me, but they had some 9-to-5 day jobs, but then eventually when they decided that they wanted to quit that, and then to focus on their sacred work, that's when they started seeing momentum, right? Because that's where they put all of their energy. There was no energy. But like what you're doing is that you're putting energy in, like half into your vision, and then the other half is invested in that you might fail. That's really what you're doing. You know, having a backup, sure, it's good to have like something there if that's already existing or something like that, right? Just to be there as like something to help out. It's, you know, it's all helpful. But if it's really not in alignment, then you are literally energizing a dead end. And you're going to keep on trying to energize this dead end and not understand why you're not progressing or moving ahead. So I hope that's helpful. Okay. Good question. Here's another one. Would offering sliding scale payment options for my patients be an example of me not being comfortable with medicine? I feel so sad that people can't afford the type of medicine I practice, and I want to help as many people as possible. So that's a valid question. And what's this? And comfortable with money. Okay. Well, it sounds like you're offering, well, it depends why you're offering sliding scale. If you're offering sliding scale because it's aligned with your business plan and how you are creating things, then it is what it is, right? But if you're providing a sliding scale because you're afraid that people will not feel like it's accessible, and you're just trying to serve every single person who comes into your office, like that's important, of course, right? And I'm not sure exactly, and I'm not going to touch this because I think I might actually end this live if I do. so it sounds like you're like a healthcare provider of some sort, and or some kind of healthcare practitioner, if you have patients like I do, right? And so the truth is that if you're kind of doing this as part of a, like, let's say a hospital, then you know it's possible that you can't really be like, okay, I specialize in helping this kind of ideal client, right? But if you are in business for yourself, or it's your own company, right, then the reality is that you get to make a choice, because when you say you want to serve everybody, you actually serve no one, because no one will know what you're really, they'll be confused. And if people are confused, they're just gonna be like, next, right? So, but again, if you're part of, like, let's say like a hospital situation, and there's a certain protocol, then it is what it is. But if it's your own business and you're a spiritually conscious entrepreneur, then that's something, it depends on the energy of why you're doing it. For me, in the beginning, I did do sliding scales on one day out of the month, and I made that known. But technically, in my line of work, it either needs to be all sliding scale or no sliding scale, because otherwise that's not even legal, I think. So once I learned that, I'm like, okay, I guess I'm not going to be doing that anymore. But that said, you can have full price for all of your offerings, making sure that they are aligned in pricing, that you're not making it just super cheap just because you feel no one can afford you, right? Because like I said, if you adjust your prices based on your fear and your scarcity mentality, you are going to attract people who are also in scarcity mentality. And when they come to see you, they're not going to be concerned about getting a transformation. They're going to get whatever's cheaper. And you don't want those kinds of patients or clients, because they're just trouble. They're just trouble, right? And they're trouble because they're gonna be like, usually they're the pain in the ass clients, the ones who are just like shopping around. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. All right, I'll take one more question because we're already beyond the hour. So any other question related to this topic of what we were covering today? All right. Yeah, and I love this approach. Someone's sharing, thanks for everybody asking those questions. All something I can learn from, all applicable to various degrees. And the reason why I love this statement is because when you are really open to growing, when you are really truly committed to growth, you actually see growth opportunities all around you. So like, for instance, if someone else is getting coaching about something, you're not like, oh, okay, now it's time for me to do my nails because she's answering this person's questions, right? No, that person who's committed to their growth is like, oh, that could apply to me too. Let me see what I can learn from it, right? And when you are committed to your growth, it's literally something that you just open to. So that's why I love that statement. All right. Well, I hope this really served you. I think we went down the juicy rabbit hole around the top 5 myths that keep lightworkers from their power. And my challenge to you now is to take one of those top 5 myths that you are resonating with, that maybe you even identify with. And if you do, that's fine, because this is part of stepping in your power, is knowing what you're doing that is not aligned with what you want, right? And then creating awareness around that, doing the work to clear, address, heal, whatever you need to do with it, and then embracing what you choose to have instead and create instead. So I hope that made sense. That's my challenge to you, is to take one of those top 5 myths and apply it right now in terms of committing to transforming that this week. And also, as part of that challenge, I challenge you to share it in the comments, even though this will no longer be live, right, upon replay. But this is going to be something that you get to claim for yourself. It's not even about me and like, okay, Margarita said to do this, I have to do this. It's like, you should do it for yourself, right? You should take any exercise, any challenge that is presented to you as an opportunity to grow. So that's my challenge to you. And if this resonated, if you found any of this helpful today, and if you would love to be supported in a deep, deep heart-centered container of light, because that's what I hold for my clients, then I recommend doing deeper work with me where I can help activate you into your divine power codes, as well as support and guide you towards that next level of your power as a light worker through a mentorship. And so if you are being drawn to this work, then I invite you to book a call with me, apply to book a call with me, and let's see where it is that you get to be in your power next as a light worker. Okay, enjoy the week. Much love, light, and power, and I'll see you next week.